This is Rob Tubbett for Boxing Social in association with Betfred, and I'm delighted to welcome everybody back to the new and improved Boxing Social podcast with, of course, my co-host, the incomparable White Rhino, Dave Alen. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm so glad to be back with this new and improved Boxing Social podcast.
Well, you look glad to be back, so that's good. You've had a bit of an early start this morning, haven't you, Dave?
We've had a fantastic day so far, and it's took a lot out of me.
We have had a fantastic day so far. Looking forward to sharing with people as we go through this episode. But first and foremost, it's been a while since we did this. It's December 2018, the last podcast that we did together.
Yep.
White Chisora 2 and Warrington Frampton. So it's been a little bit of time. Been a while. Lots happened since then, but good to be back, mate.
No, it's been good, Boxing's been booming. Obviously we've had the whole COVID situation, but since boxing's been back, it's been back with the boom, and I think we'll see the year out strong with some good heavyweight action. We've got some great heavyweight fights to end the year, so I think boxing's in a good place.
What have you made of kind of the post-lockdown COVID boxing? Obviously, we've had Fight Camp, Frank Warren shows have been back, American shows. How much have you watched and what have you made of it?
Well, I think the first show was July 10th. I think it was Brad Foster and Jimmy Beach. And the Warren shows, they came back and I was glad to see boxing. I think the first two fights were David Adelaide against some fella and Phil Williams against some other big fella. And it was 2 4-rounders and it was mismatchy kind of stuff. And, there've been some good fights on in between stuff that I would rather been left off the TV, Fight Camp came around and we started to see some more competitive matches. We were saying 4 fights out of every 5 on the Fight Camp shows. You weren't sure which way it'd go. You could make an argument for each. So they came back and brought some competitiveness back. We saw some great fights. Harper Jonas, Eglinton Cheeseman, Dylan Magani on Channel 5 Saturday night. So I think it's come back strong. The American stuff, I don't really watch the American stuff because I can't stay awake past 11 o'clock now. So I don't even get to see that anymore. But it's come back really strong, I think. And I think the end of the year, the fights that I know that are going to happen, that I've been told are going to happen, I think we're going to have a really strong end of the year.
Let's talk about Fight Camp. Which fights in particular did you rate? Which ones did you like looking back?
Well, Fight Camp looked amazing, first of all. Obviously, I thought I was going to go a few times and it never came off. But looked amazing. I've heard great things about it. The production quality was great. As for the fights, I think a lot of the fights was good. It was evenly matched. It was quite competitive. You got the odd mismatch. You got Chris Bill and Smith beating up a light heavyweight, which weren't the most competitive thing in the world. The odd other fight that I thought, well, that's not a great matchup. But when you've got the likes of Harper Jonas, the first all British women world title fight, and it was a 5-star matchup. It was absolutely fantastic. Eglinton Cheeseman was great. Whyte-Povetkin, how dramatic was that? Taylor Pursuant again, another great fight. Then you had the likes of Donovan Barrett. Could sit here all day and go through all of them. Lots of great fights. And what made it so good for me was out of the 25 fights there was, like we say, 15-20 of them was either competitive on paper or competitive on the night, and what more can you ask for?
You mentioned Harper Jonas. Obviously, we don't have time today to touch on every single one of the post-lockdown shows, but let's touch upon Harper Jonas. Obviously, Terry Harper from your neck of the woods. How did you see that fight? A lot of people thought it was, a lot of people, myself included, had Tasha Jonas winning that fight.
Yeah, Terry's a good friend of mine. I like Terry, but I thought she got beat. I thought it was a great fight. Women's boxing's flying at the minute. Taylor Pursuant, Courtney Ball, Harper Jonas, 3 fights in 3 weeks, arguably fight of the night on all 3 shows. I thought Jonas won. I thought, if you score it round by round, which you have to, which is how boxing is scored, it was close. Terry won a lot of the rounds by not really doing much. But Jonas, over 10 rounds overall, was by far the better fighter. I thought, she looked brilliant. She all back the years. I remember watching Tasha spar on the GB when I was sparring Joshua back in the day, and she was fantastic. And she rolled back the years. I thought Gallagher did a good job. Game plan was good, and I thought she deserved to win. But I'm sure she'll get another opportunity now. I thought they would team up the Katie Taylor Jonas fight with her being back on the pay-per-view card when the Whyte-Povetkin. So I think we'll see Taylor and Jonas.
before we see a rematch?
Yeah, I don't think we'll see Terry and Tasha again. I think we'll see Katie Taylor-Jonas, and obviously Terry's now going to fight Thunders, I believe it is. And I don't think we'll see the rematch now. I think them two fights that I've just said, I think they'll be the next two fights for both women.
What did you make of Katie Taylor versus Delphine Persoon?
For me, I thought Persoon won. I thought she outworked Katie Taylor. She's a very strong woman, unbelievably physically strong. And Katie was outboxing her at times and landing the cleaner shots. But for me, if you're landing 3 shots out of 15 and they're nice quality shots, that's great. But if you're landing 10 out of 100, you're still landing 7 more shots. And that's the way I believe boxing should be scored.
I think it's kind of indicative of the strength of women's boxing at the minute that the first kind of talking point that we've got to here is about women's boxing. Terry Harper versus Tasha Jonas. You mentioned Rachel Ball versus Shannon Courtney. I also stayed up to watch Jess McCaskill beat Cecilia Breakhouse, obviously long reigning welterweight queen. Female boxing in a fantastic place at the minute. I can't remember it being in such a purple patch.
Yeah, when women's boxing was first, when Katie Taylor burst onto the scene, for me, I know Jane Couch was the woman that in Britain that brought professional boxing to these shores, but I was negative about it. Not negative, but I was unsure. I wasn't a massive fan of it. Watching Katie Taylor, I thought, right, she's really good, but she's only one. You see the rest of them, you think that the quality wasn't great. I then saw Terry Harper in the gym, then started watching her fight and thought, right, she's very good. Then seeing Savannah Marshall, Chantel Cameron, then you're watching Clester Shields over in America. I've missed probably Tasha Jonas, I missed a few out. These women are exceptional. Harper and Jonas was as good a fight as I see anywhere. And not just in terms of the effort, because Shannon Courtney and Rachel Ball wasn't high in terms of... it wasn't like watching McCallum and James Toney. But the effort level was unbelievable. But watching Harper and Jonas, the skill level that Jonas was showing was as good as any fight you'll see anywhere. And I know they say it's not women's boxing, but it is women's boxing. It's women's boxing, it's men's boxing. And the women, for me, I know when I watch women's boxing now, I'm going to see a great fight. I can't remember the last fight I saw that involved 2 women. That was a bad fight. I genuinely can't remember one.
It really has been one of the few high points throughout the post-lockdown boxing. Moving away from female boxing, what other fights caught your eye throughout the period that we've just had?
For me, I really enjoyed Eric Donovan's Zelfa Barrett. I just enjoyed watching Eric Donovan. I thought it was exceptionally talented. You were saying good back down to featherweight. He can do great things, and the way Zelfa turned it around. With the shots that he found 3 unbelievable shots, three fight enders, and for me, I enjoyed watching that fight more than any other. Even though it may not be the most exciting, for me, I really enjoyed watching Eric Donovan go to work.
Yeah, I'd like to see Donovan back down at featherweight. I think at the age in his career, kind of stepping up against a younger, bigger, fresher guy like a Zelfa Barrett who can punch as well, was always going to be a little bit of a stretch, particularly considering the fact that seasoned amateur, not used to doing that much, not that many rounds. So yeah, I like that fight too. Fight that I was very, very much looking forward to post-lockdown was actually made before lockdown with Chris Congo and Luther Clay. Chris Congo coming out victorious in that one. I really, really was happy for both guys. Obviously, Luther Clay unfortunately didn't get the win, but I felt that both equipped themselves very well. What did you make of that fight?
I thought it was a great fight. Me and you spoke before. You was thinking Congo would win. I thought Clay would win. Big Luther Clay fan. I like the way he fights. He's got an old school style, Cas Farouk kind of style. He moves his head, he punches off the rolls. Slow feet. I'm a believer in slow feet. I have slow feet myself, and the way I was taught to box was slow feet, fast hands. I don't have fast hands, but I've got slow feet, so we're halfway there. But I'm a big fan of Luther Clay, how he boxes, and I'm a big fan of him as a person as well. We got on really well, so I was hoping he would win. And I'd only seen Chris Congo box once before against Sergeant Bomo at the O2 when Brown boxed Dillian Whyte. So I thought Luther Clay would beat him. I did. But Chris Congo showed that he's... for me, he showed he's in the same leagues as the Josh Kellys of the world, but he hasn't got the same, obviously, he's not at that level of notoriety, so he's not known as being a very good fighter, but he is, and I think he could beat a Josh Kelly and a Conor Benn. I think he's definitely at their level for sure. So I hope he gets the opportunity to box one of them guys, and I hope Luther Clay can come back and he can win a British title for sure. I think it's very unfortunate that he bumped into Chris Congo. I always feel sorry for these fighters when, you know, you're fighting an eliminator for a British title, or you're fighting for one of these WBO Intercontinental Global title, I think it were, and, you know, they're seen as a fight that you should win really and pick a belt up. But when you fight someone that's probably, Chris Congo will probably end up, he's going to be borderline world championship level. So Luther Clay can definitely come back and definitely win British and Commonwealth titles, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, going into the fight, I mean, Luther Clay himself said that he was the form fighter, or I interviewed both of them at the same time, and he said that, you know, he had the form going in, but obviously Chris had the kind of established amateur background, was on Team GB, hadn't boxed in a long time, which was obviously a big question mark over that fight. I did feel it was a 50-50 fight, but I did feel it was a 50-50 fight based on the fact that Chris had been out of the ring for 16 months and Luther Clay had boxed in 2 good performances on Sky Sports, went out to Italy and obviously boxed at York Hall as well. But I did think that stylistically it was going to be a difficult fight for Luther Clay because how long Chris Congo is. He's got good feet, and he has... and you all know this from when you've boxed, it's bridging that experience gap, and the fact that Chris Congo has that extensive amateur background, and, you know, I've seen him spar Josh Taylor. He's always kind of hopping around to whatever gym will have him. He stayed sharp in that period of time. But I did think, as you mentioned, with the slow feet of Luther Clay, I mean, I'm a big fan of Luther Clay too. I think he's a great guy, he's a great kid, and I do believe that fighting Chris Congo at this point in his career will really help him develop. But I did think that going into that fight, the feet were going to be the problem. Closing that distance on Chris Congo, who has a lovely control of distance, a good jab, and once he sets you up with that jab is when he starts to whip the left hook around the side. And I think, having known Chris, I could see that that's what he was trying to do early on in the fight, and eventually that's the shot that kind of brought the fight to an end. And I think I'm pleased for Chris Congo in the sense of, I know how long he's waited, but also for Luther Clay, he didn't disgrace himself. He certainly didn't let himself down, and I do believe that that's a good fight for him to learn from. Before we move on to Whyte-Povetkin, which was obviously the end of fight camp, and I mean, by far the highest profile fight that we've seen certainly in this country post-COVID or post-lockdown. I don't really know the correct thing to say, but let's talk about some of the other heavyweights. You mentioned David Adelaide. Yeah. We also saw the kind of emergence of the Savage, Alen Babic, which caused a lot of headlines, a lot of tweets, mainly from me. And Fabio Wardley as well, very impressive against somebody you know well, and Simon Vallily.
Yeah, I thought all three was great. I think they were the 3 heavyweights that we've seen. We also saw the guy from the Peacock, that's Bois,
can't remember his name.
Luciano Tarn, I think it is.
Yeah.
So, all 4 good fighters. For me, Fabio Wardley, out of the 4, Fabio Wardley, one that stands out. He's had 4 white collar fights, 9 pro fights, and he goes and beats Simon Vallily. I think Simon's on the slide. Simon was one of the most talented fighters I've ever seen and worked with and sparred with. I've sparred with him over 10 years, and he won the Commonwealth Games by winning every fight in the first round. He won the ABAs literally after a handful of amateur fights. Unbelievably talented, but he's lived their own kind of life. He's a friend of mine, and he's achieved good things. But Fabio, for that experience to beat Simon, whether he's on the slide or not, is an unbelievable result. The way he did it as well, he looked amazing. His reflexes are top notch. I'm a big Fabio Wardley fan. You know, there's been talks of me fighting him, but as a boxing fan, I look at him and I think it's a very good fight. Is he big enough to ever challenge for world championships? I have my doubts, but in and around domestic level at the minute, he's the English champion. He could very well be when Joyce and Dubois move on. He could be the number 1 man. He could be the man to beat. I think he's very good. Alen Babic, I'm not really sure how serious to take him. He's 14 stone 6. Great to watch. I thought it was exciting. His whole Savage character, amazing. He's doing good things for him. He's getting his name out there. How good he is, I'm not sure. I did a bit of digging on his amateur background. He had a lot of amateur fights, a lot of experience. But at 14 stone 6, as I was talking about natural size, people were saying he'd beat Dave Allen and Dave Price, and they're saying, nah, he can't. He's not big enough. You cannot give away 3 stone to me and 4 stones to David Price and beat us. It's an impossibility. Not with that style, anyway. Alexander Usyk at 14 stone 4 would have probably beat me. He'd have done circles around me. You can't come running into a heavyweight 3 stone bigger than you and think you can run straight through him. It's an impossibility. However, he's very good. I think he's a cruiserweight. He causes a lot of problems. And Dave Adelaide, I think he's very novice-y. He's very young. I don't think he's the most experienced. He doesn't look it. But he looks like he's got all the tools. It looks like he can go a long way. So yeah, that's been good as well post lockdown. The young lot getting. I say young lot. They're not much older. One of them's older than me, and the other two aren't much younger than me. But I feel like I've been about forever. But yeah, we've seen a lot of good young talent. I think British boxing in a great place. There's so many good fighters out there right now.
You mentioned Alen Babic, so I have to talk about the fight that he spoke about in the immediate aftermath of beating Sean Dale Winters, who I think it's again worth pointing out was actually a cruiserweight in that fight. Technically, Sean Dale Winters
it was a cruiserweight fight, wasn't it?
Yeah,
really?
It really was a cruiserweight fight. So I think Babic, I think it might have been you actually who said this, who kind of will have a go at heavyweight, eventually find that kind of size does matter, and then drop down and be a real handful at cruiserweight. But he's talking about fighting Filip Hrgović. Now it's an all Croatian fight. Now Filip Hrgović is a real problem, in my opinion.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
Well, Alen Babic after the fight, I said I thought Alen Babic because I was sat there and I thought everyone wants to see it. It pays a lot of money, and there's no 14 stone 6 man with that kind of style on the planet that can beat me. They can't. They're not big enough. It is what it is. Like I said, a Usyk or a Bradis or these top class cruiserweights. Yeah, by all means, they can come and beat a lot of the heavyweights, beat everyone by the top 5 or 10. But with that kind of style, it's an impossibility. And I'm talking about fighting someone like me. He wouldn't beat me. To then think he's going to beat a man at 6'7" with a massive amateur pedigree who punches very hard in Filip Hrgović, he would not last a round with Filip Hrgović. He wouldn't. He just wouldn't. He couldn't. Very tough man. I'm not being negative about him. I think he's a very good fighter. I think he's. I've looked at his amateur background. I have to say, yeah, good fighter. But he's a cruiserweight. There's no cruiserweight on the planet would beat Filip Hrgović. Never mind one that's very one-dimensional. I don't think he's the biggest puncher in the world. I sound very negative about him. I'm big on him. But when you talk about him fighting one of the top 10 heavyweight, which I think Hrgović is, it's silly talk. For Babic next, he just needs to keep fighting at the level he's fighting. You know, you can't go from Sean Dale Winters 13-12 to Filip Hrgović. It's silly talk. You can't go from Sean Dale Winters 13-12 to me or David Price. David Price would beat him in no time, and I firmly believe that I would as well. I think he should carry on at heavyweight, keep doing what he's doing. It's lots of fun. I think it's great. And then when he gets beat, go to cruiserweight. You know, I'm the master of repackaging. I'm like a WWF wrestler in the 90s. Just keep repackaging myself and having another go. And I think that's what he's doing. I think that's what he'll do. And I think he'll have a lot of success. I'm a fan of him. I like him.
Next, we're going to check in with the Boxing Social Club, which isn't the Boxing Social Club. It's the Boxing Social Club. It's something that we're still trying to get used to, where we reach out to you using the app Camflare, developed by our partners here at WebVid. We've asked people for their standout fights, their favourite fights, or the best fights from post-lockdown, and they've sent them in. So me and Dave, we're going to have a look, and we're going to show you.
I mean, considering you're not supposed to go within 2 metres of anyone, lockdown's been mad for big action fights.
My favourite fight in lockdown, or since lockdown.
Best fight of lockdown so far.
My favourite fight of lockdown.
My favourite fight of lockdown was quite an easy one to pick.
There's been quite a few decent scraps.
The all-British women's world title fight.
Natasha Jonas versus Terry Harper.
Terry Harper, Tasha Jonas.
Jonas Harper.
I thought that was a great fight.
Terry Harper versus Natasha Jonas.
Jonas Harper fight was a thriller.
Two women that just went at it.
I didn't give Natasha much of a shot.
They showed skill, heart, desire.
I thought Terry was going to stop her. I even put money on it.
Fantastic effort by both women.
And again, another women's fight in Taylor Pursuit.
Taylor Pursuit rematch was as good as everyone was expecting.
The pace didn't drop throughout the 12 rounds.
Courtney against Bolton, another women's fight which really caught the eye as well.
But my pick
Dil Magani against Ziani.
is Samia Ziani versus Alex Dilmagani.
Incredible.
Man, that was just a throwback fight.
In an all-action affair.
The referee was shocking in that last round.
But for me, the one moment, the one fight that I don't think anyone who watched it will forget
The only fight where you were really left at the end of it with your jaw on the floor.
has got to be Povetkin against Whyte.
Dillian Whyte against Alexander Povetkin.
To see a fight like that going one way
Dillian Whyte looking like he was going to cruise to victory.
and then from out of nowhere, one big shot, textbook stuff. I don't think I'll ever forget it, and anyone who watched it won't forget that either.
Wow, it sent shockwaves around boxing.
Povetkin Whyte favourite so far.
Samia Ziani versus Alex Dilmagani.
For me, being a local lad, it meant that little bit more, and that's why Brad Foster versus James Beach Jr. was my favourite fight of lockdown.
The very first all-British women's world title fight between Terry Harper and Natasha Jonas.
was a great advert for women's boxing.
Big up Natasha Jonas.
Peace.
So that was our input from the Boxing Social Club. Thank you very much for everybody who sent that in using Camflare. Again, Camflare developed by WebVid here, the wonderful people at WebVid. Dave, it seemed like, well, it followed on from our discussion really, a lot of people in there. Harper Jonas, the standout fight for a lot of people.
Yeah, I thought it was probably my pick, along with Donovan and Barrett and Whyte-Povetkin, obviously for the drama. Yeah, it was an unbelievable fight.
One or two obviously going for Whyte-Povetkin as well, like the big shocking finish.
Yeah.
You can't beat a big conclusive knockout in a big heavyweight fight. There's something about that.
Whatever Deck Taylor says is often right, so big up Deck Taylor, yeah.
Wrong camera. That's the one to big up Deck Taylor.
That's for you, Deck.
That's for you, Deck. Let's move on. Dillian Whyte versus Alexander Povetkin. I wasn't expecting that. I did think that Alexander Povetkin was a much, much, much more live underdog than some potentially picked him as. Shocking. Really, really shocking.
Yeah, I before the fight, I thought it was a Whyte points victory. I thought I was pretty confident with that pick. I thought Whyte will box and move. He's got a good jab. You watch Dillian Whyte on the TV and you think, oh, he looks slow and ponderous. You're in there with him. He's got a good jab. He moves his feet well. He's defensively quite sound. You don't get to where he is without being good, beating some of the names he's beat. I thought Povetkin was shot to bits before the fight, and having watched the first 4 rounds, I'm still the same mindset. I think he's shot to bits. I think he's finished Povetkin. I think he's done. Dillian Whyte, after the 4th round, I stopped watching really. I kind of was on my phone thinking this has only got a couple of rounds left. Dillian Whyte's going to put him on the jab. He's only got to land one more good shot, put him over. The ref's going to call it off. I was out. I was disinterested. Thought this fight's over. I thought Dillian Whyte, this is a great performance. He's going to stop Alexander Povetkin in the first half of the fight. Now it's going to be interesting. Is it going to be Fury? Is it going to be Joshua? Is it going to be Wilder? Like, where next? Out of nowhere, the jab, he sits right down on his legs, comes up with a left uppercut that would have knocked anybody in the world of boxing out. People were saying to me, would you have took that? You got a good chin. I said, I would still be a kip now. And they asked me last week. It was just a perfect shot. I think he's shot to bits, but I think his legs have gone. I don't think he's as fast as he used to be. But you don't lose your power and you don't lose your skill. They're the last two things you lose, your power, and you're not going to lose all the 30 years of boxing experience. You're not going to lose that. You're not going to lose your power. It was just 2 seconds of just rolling the clock back. I think Dillian Whyte wins the rematch. I think it's dangerous to take it so soon after the first fight. But from what I saw, there's only one winner in the rematch, But it's a big thing to come back from, a knockout like that. It's a scary knockout. It's a big thing to come back from.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's kind of the big question for me. I think going into a rematch, you would probably ordinarily favour Dillian Whyte, but the quick turnaround, and also I think people are losing sight of the fact that Dillian Whyte's been in a lot of hard fights, consecutively difficult fights. Yeah. You talk about the Joseph Parker fight. He was down in that fight. The end of that fight was really, really difficult for Dillian Whyte. Both Chisora fights were both wars. Yeah. First one could have gone either way. He was behind on the cards in the second one. Marius Vac had some success out in Saudi Arabia, hurt him a couple of times. All right, that wasn't obviously an in shape and kind of peak Dillian Whyte. But we're kind of getting to the stage now where probably, I'd say Oscar Rivas had him down. Yeah. 7 of the last 8 or 9 fights we've seen him hurt. I remember it wasn't that long ago, Robert Hellenius stung him, I think that was on the
early on, yeah.
Joshua Takam undercard. Yeah, stung him with a jab early on. So, and as you know, at heavyweight, it only takes one shot. I would be very, very concerned about going into that fight. I mean, November the 21st is kind of the date that we're hearing about that fight. That's a quick turnaround for such a brutal knockout.
I mean, I look at it 2 ways. If I'm Dillian Whyte looking at the fight, I'm watching the first fight back and thinking, I had this fight in the bag. He'll be looking at it and thinking, he's in there with him. This is not Povetkin from 2008 or 2000, when he won the Olympics 2004. 2000, before he watched Klitschko, that's the best Povetkin. That's a very dangerous man. We're not dealing with the same Povetkin now, And I would think Dillian Whyte had the confidence to think he'd beat him 9 times out of 10, and that one time he gets lucky, and that one time has been and gone. That was a bolt of lightning that hit him. And he'll not think you wouldn't think that would happen twice. Like you say, the big knockout is a worry, but for me, what other options he got? What else can he do? What's he gonna do? Have a 10-rounder? Keep ticking, just ticking over. There's no point. He has to go back in. he beats Povetkin, he's where he was before the first fight. He loses, his career over. But for me, what other options are there? What else can they do? So Dylan Whyte, you have to respect him, because since he boxed Joshua, he boxed me, then Lewison, and then after that he left domestic level, and he's fought. He fought Brown when he was undefeated. He fought Parker when he possibly didn't need to. Rivas is a very dangerous man that he probably didn't need to fight. So, I mean, you look at his record and you have to take your hat off to him and say, yeah, he's fought everybody. But he has to fight Povetkin next, and he has to beat him, or he's pretty much career done, because Dylan won't want to come back and fight below the level he's been fighting at, I wouldn't have thought.
If you're Alexander Povetkin, surely you've got to be fancying the rematch.
I'm not sure, because I just thought the commentary was horrific. Early on, the fight was... I watched it with commentary on, and after the fight, I said, oh, well, Dylan Whyte won all 4 rounds comfortably. He didn't. Povetkin had some success early on. You know, the 3rd round wasn't great for him. In the 4th round, he was dropped twice and he was dominated. However, early on, he did have some success. Povetkin's got the kind of face where you think he's struggling, but he does it. I remember watching boxing with Fury, and after 3 rounds, I thought, Povetkin's struggling, his old man. After 11, 12 rounds, he's still putting the same face, he's still at the same pace. But I fancy Dylan Whyte to beat him. I really do. I think Dylan Whyte stops him. Just watching the 3rd and 4th round, Povetkin is done. But like I said before, the skill level and the power will not leave you. So Dylan Whyte, I saw interviews with him after the fight, and I really liked what he was saying. He knew the mistakes he'd made. He knows what he has to do. That's something then to go and do it.
Just expand on that a little bit, because obviously some of the interviews that we've heard from Dylan Whyte after the fight saying, he knows what to expect now, he knows what to look for. It looked to me like Povetkin was setting that shot up for a couple of rounds. And if you're preparing to box Alexander Povetkin, I'm assuming at least that one of the big parts of your preparation is to watch him getting on the inside and letting go of those short shots. Yeah. We saw him knock out Carlos Takam from 6 inches away. Yeah. So surely that has to have been factored into your preparations for that fight, and you should really have prepared for that the first time. Is it what I'm saying is it a case of Povetkin was just able to unlock the door, and is he going to be able to do it again in a rematch?
Well, it's really funny actually, because my old man, I was doing some pad work and my dad was watching, telling us what to do. This was 6 p.m. an hour before Charlie Cullen, the first fight. He was saying, look, I want you to throw a jab, sit right down on your knees and throw the left uppercut, then come back to the right and left up. That's what we were doing. And 4 hours later, that's the shot Povetkin threw. You throw the jab. The jab never hit Whyte, and he slipped his jab and he came up with the uppercut. Because Povetkin's head was below Dylan Whyte's line of vision, he couldn't even see his hand. He thinks Povetkin's shot's the left hook, so he's blocking the hook. That leaves all that open. So from early in the round, like you were saying, round 1, he was having success to the body. He was digging the left hook to the body. He wasn't really going for the head. And I thought Povetkin early on would have a go. I thought he'd be swinging short shots in, hook with either hand in the uppercut, and I thought he'd be trying to finish with the left hook, and he wasn't. He was hitting the body. So you'd have to say that it did look like there was no lucky punch. I've heard people come out. I've heard some really world class fighters say it was a lucky punch, and I thought, you know better than that. Come on. You don't win Olympic gold medals and world heavyweight titles with lucky.
It was a beautiful shot. There's no way you can look at that and think anything else.
He threw the jab, he slipped down, and he just changed the angle of the punch from a hook to the uppercut and knocked him spark out. There was no luck involved. It was unbelievable. Whether it was just a spark of genius. Like I say, it was just a few seconds. That's all you need at that level when you can punch like that. But yeah, I think it was planned. I think to do that 2 times in a row would be unbelievable. Because it was, I think that's the shot of his career, and he's landed some beauties. But that for me tops all the others.
Okay, well, before we move on, one thing I do want to touch on. You said a little bit of time ago that you were, say, less than impressed with the commentary. Now that's been a very, very kind of talked about topic. Really, it's been all over social media. Just expand on that.
Well, there's a few things involved. Adam Smith, for me, like he's got a role at Sky. So he shouldn't be commentating on the boxing for me, because he has an interest. He can't not be biased. He's selling the product, so therefore he's selling the Sky fighters. So I think that's a conflict of interest. I think the commentary is very biased. I'm a big Matt Macklin fan. He was a great fighter, and I used to really enjoy his commentary. I think he definitely knows his stuff. You listen to him and you think, yeah, he knows what he's watching. This fella, obviously, a high level fighter. and he's got the ability to know what he's watching and put it across in a very good way, and I like listening to him. But the fight camp shows, the commentating for the Courtney Ball especially, some of the worst I've ever heard, you know. And I do think the conflict of interest with Adam Smith working at Sky and commentating on fighters that are contracted to Matchroom who have a deal with Sky, they're the only players on Sky. It doesn't make sense to me. And I say this, I don't have a Matchroom contract, but I'm pretty much a Matchroom fighter, and I may not in trouble. I'm not saying nothing that I shouldn't be saying. But
it's your opinion. You're entitled to your opinion.
Yeah, and I don't think he should be commentating on the fights. I don't think he can give an unbiased opinion. Matt Macklin, for me, him and Andy Lee, we both agreed. I think they're the best two. Barry Jones, we said, is very good. They're great. Give these men who know their boxing inside out the free rein to say what they're seeing with their honest opinion. Let them say exactly what they're seeing without worrying that they shouldn't say this and shouldn't say that because they're not our fighter, they're our fighter, and let them talk boxing.
And as always, we thank you for your honesty. So that's our kind of loose breakdown of all of the post-lockdown shows in the UK. Of course, there are fights and fighters that we didn't cover. Some of them are quite a while ago now. But coming up next, very, very excited to show you what we've been up to. Yesterday, I took a trip down to the Lee Valley Athletic Centre to meet a very, very special man, a British boxing icon and a legend. Enjoy. We're here today at the Lee Valley Athletic Centre to meet one of British boxing's most revered figures. It gives me great pleasure to meet Michael Watson, MBE.
I'm Judge. Don't take the dollar here, let's make her feel old. God bless you. I'll show you.
Do you watch boxing now?
I had it rough nowadays.
Coming out the jacket cause we're turning up the heat. I wanna see you clapping when you get up out your seat. It's time to make it happen when we hit these streets. I'm coming in hot and I can't be beat. Watch out now.
I love the girl. Shut up.
Welcome back. We are joined here today by Michael Watson, MBE, after seeing his exploits yesterday at the Lee Valley Athletic Centre. First and foremost, Michael, thank you so much, not only for having us yesterday, but for coming down today. I know my co-host, Mr. Dave Alen here, has been desperate to meet you, so thank you very much for coming down.
Absolute pleasure.
So, Dave, what did you make of the workout we saw from the Force yesterday?
I was very impressed. He's been telling me all about the Force, and I saw the Force. I saw it. I can feel it, and he's passing it on to me. And you know, if I can take 1% of what this man's all about, you know, I'd be a proud man.
Now, Michael, we just saw you speaking with Dave inside. You care to share with us what little nuggets of information you were giving to our Dave Alen?
He's an extraordinary man. I love his attitude. You know, he's got great character, very humble. As a matter of fact, he reminds me of me in my heydays. The spirit of humility, peaceful, just calm. I love his calmness.
And Dave, how does it feel to have that from Michael Watson? I mean, I know that you would have grown up through the 90s and you were watching this great man and Nigel Benn and Chris Eubank and the like really bring British boxing to the forefront. What's it like all of these years later to have the man himself in front of you giving you such pearls of wisdom?
You know, as a fighter, you know, a much better fighter than I. As a boxing fan, just a great fighter. But as a man, you know, my respect's on a totally another level again for him. You know, and to him say great things about me, he's just amazing. And he spoke to me about the power of positivity and, you know, what this man's achieved. You know, I can only respect him and just, you know, just listen to him and take in what he says and just try and be, like I said, a small percentage of what this man is and what he's achieved, and I'd be a very happy man.
Michael, it's got to be lovely to hear that. I know it's something that you hear a lot from people who are always inspired to meet you. But this is a man who's living what you lived back in those glory days of, he's trying to earn his way, he's trying to fight, and he's trying to climb the ladder. It must be great to hear that you've already had such a nice effect on him.
It certainly is, Rob. What makes a person a real person is self-belief. So it's not what's made me who I am. The powers of the positivity, mind over matter, the PMA element, positive mental attitude. I'll never work on the negative. Always positive. Things are always positive when you believe in yourself. It's all based on self-belief. And with Dave, he's got all the qualities of being a super fighter. When create the right frame of mindset of working on positivity elements, you can be a fantastic fighter, Dave. Think on the positive, not the negative.
Now, one of the fights that I know that Dave and myself are really keen to hear about was the fight with Nigel Benn. Now, as we've spoke about, Nigel Benn 22-0, 22 knockouts going into that fight until he met the Force. Now, what was the game plan going in there, and just how difficult a challenge was Nigel Benn for you?
To make sure I covered my head. Where every punch, every fighter Nigel hits on top of the head, they fall off like a ton of bricks. And I knew for sure if he hits me on top of my head, I'll be going over the same way. But I had to create a peekaboo style. Or I can't get my gloves to cover my head and let him punch himself out. And that's exactly what took place.
Now, you said to us before we started here that the fight with Nigel Benn, obviously you went on to box some great fighters. You boxed Mike McCallum in your next fight. You obviously had the 2 fights with Chris. But you said that the Nigel Benn fight prepared you for all of them. It was more difficult than all of those fights.
Without a doubt. The fight with Nigel, I had to train. I've never trained as hard as I've ever trained for a fight. The only fight I trained so hard was with Nigel. I trained for my life. Like, if I didn't train the way I trained against Nigel, he would have killed me in that ring. I was the fittest I've ever been for a fight was against Nigel. But all my world titles to fight together doesn't match the fight I had with Nigel. That's how devastating that fight was.
How soon
that fight made me who I am of today.
Sorry for interrupting. How soon in that fight did you know that you had him? Was there a moment, was there a specific time when you thought, okay, I've got you now?
In the first round. He put £15,000 to knock me out in the first round. That's how sure he was they were going to take me. All I have to do is to pass the first round and show him that I'm more of a man than he thinks. In that fight, I looked at him after that first round when I said to him, I'm still here. I knew I had him from then on, from the first round.
You had Chris was such an extrovert, Nigel was the man's man. Yeah. Do you think that you were underrated because you were seen as a nice man? You were seen as a nice guy?
Yes. I'm so bold and outraged as I'm just calm, cool and collective. Very, very humbled I was in my approach. The calm and cool. Action speaks louder.
Now, I mentioned in your next fight you boxed Mike McCallum for the world middleweight title. Mike McCallum, one of the greatest fighters of all time in any weight class. What was it like being in the ring with him? Obviously a different fighter completely to Nigel.
Completely skillful, very technical, very good jabber. An artist of perfection. He's perfect skillcraft, totally different. Left punching thin air. Different class of a fighter, very technical.
How much did you take from him going forward in your career? Because you were a technical fighter as well. Yeah. You were somebody who you appreciated the sweet science of things. How much did you learn from Mike?
The only problem with me against Mike McCallum, I was at the ring I was very, 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 very rusty. I broke my nose and came out of the ring for a year. So I wasn't sharp of movement. I felt it felt as though I was into another body. I was very slow, very flat-footed. But Mike McCallum, he's certainly the class act. But I wasn't at my peak in that fight.
Talk to us about the first fight with Chris Eubank. A lot of people, myself included, felt that you were very, very unlucky not to win the first fight against Chris.
Yes.
What are your memories of the first fight?
Being in total control from the first round. It's a fight that I totally enjoyed it, not knocking him pillar to post. Every body shot I hit him, I was making screaming like, ah! I was in total control, Rob. I had a fight well in control of my, well in control in the system, in my boxing system.
How did you feel when the decision was read out? Because you're a very nice man. You have a lot of faith. How did you feel in that moment? Was it easy to forgive the judges? Was it easy to forgive the decision?
I knew more than the judge. I lost the fight before it even started. Money speaks. Money creates a lot of things in the system. Politics. It was an unjust decision. I knew there's something skullduggery in the system.
And did that fuel you for the rematch?
Yes, it did. I thought the only way to beat Chris is to go out there and knock him out. I came out in the second rematch fight with full rage. The only way I'll beat Chris is to put him out on his back. And that's the attitude I carried out throughout that fight.
How much of the final round do you remember? How much of the end of that fight do you remember, the rematch?
I can remember knocking Chris pillar to post, putting him down on the floor. You know, it's amazing when the whole system is against you. I mean, money speaks. Money does a lot of things to individuals. I mean, when you got a lot of money, you can do as you please. The referee gave Chris a 10-second count that lasted a minute. 1, 2, the slow 10-second count of it. I was just said, Chris, get up, come over to me, and just blank. And that was it.
And after that, obviously, we know the extent of the injury. How soon after that did you realise the extent of the injury, or how soon after that do you remember?
The only thing I remember is being driven to hospital in a hospital van. It felt like a nightmare. I couldn't believe it. I'm fighting in the ring, and blank. Now I'm wake up. I'm in the hospital van. From there, everything was a nightmare.
And you were aware of kind of what was going on?
Yes, I was. Being put into the hospital ward, being into a hospital room with all brain damaged people. There's Mark Watson, the boxer. Oh, it's just unbelievable. I kept the faith, Rob. Yeah, it hasn't been easy. I've been through dark channels in my life, but I kept the faith.
Now, as we all do, we all go through our dark moments in our lives. Obviously, myself and Dave are no different. What advice have you got to people who are going through those dark moments? You mentioned, you're happy, you're smiling,
yes.
you're always giving back, you always got a smile on your face. But going through what you went through, as you say, there would have been those dark moments. What advice have you got to people who are suffering, maybe not in a physical sense as you were, but it could have been anything, even in a mental or emotional sense?
Just believe in yourself. Life is too precious to give up. That's what I would say. There's too much in life for me to quit. Life is worth living for. That's what gave me the fighting spirit to succeed.
Now, one thing that I really want to speak to you about is you had a special visitor when you were in the hospital. A certain Muhammad Ali made the trip over to see Michael Watson in the hospital. What was that like? What was that whole experience like?
Oh, man. You know, as long as I live, I will never forget that day. My hero. Muhammad Ali is my absolute hero. I was watching when he's had these fights, and seeing him in the hospital room together, or we're talking together. That's just amazing.
What did he say to you?
I'm a real fighter. and he's proud of me. And I come from Muhammad Ali. I had given the input to move on in my life. And he said that he told me I will get better. And gave me the strength to move on. World's going to be very powerful. Come from a hero like Muhammad Ali, it made me strong where I felt weak. Gave me the innermost strength to help me move a mountain. That's how strong I was. After the word of inspiration. And he said he's proud of me, and I'm a true fighter. That was is lived with me from this moment. That's how powerful words are.
He also said that you weren't bad looking either, which is quite a compliment coming from him.
That's extreme. He knows best. he knows what he's saying. I cannot deny it. Deny it, can I?
With Muhammad coming in, and as you mentioned, he's a lot of people's heroes, but being your hero coming into the hospital and kind of giving you that inspiration at a time where really not all hope was lost, but you were in a very dark place and you were in a difficult spot in your life. Did that kind of play an effect or have an impact on the way that you are now? I mean, you are very much a lot of people's heroes. You were very much the inspirational figure.
Do you know, Rob, what Ali's done is it is a spiritual thing. He passed the banner on to me. Now Ali's not around. Now he's back. He's within me. Can you feel the force?
I can feel the force. Can you feel the force?
I feel the force.
You should be shaking, Dave.
For people who aren't sure, we're actually trying to arrange a live stream. I'd say a fight, but I don't want him to hurt you. So maybe we do a spar on boxing.
No fault. Me and Dave were in the same team.
Same team.
Dave should have teamed into Rob. Dave should have teamed that wouldn't work.
Now, I know Dave's got some questions that he wants to ask you about some fantasy fights. You shared the ring with some of...
I don't deal in fantasy. I deal with realism. I'm a realism.
Okay, give me your real breakdowns of the fights that Dave wants to ask you about.
I want to know who you think would win out of Mike McCallum and Nigel Benn.
Nigel Benn. God, Nigel Benn, the powerhouse. Mike McCallum done punch as hard as Nigel. Nigel is a very smart fighter and very technical as well.
Do you think he was underrated technically because he was such a big puncher?
Yes, he was. But I've been in the ring with Nigel and Mike McCallum. Nigel's getting the fight. I fought Mike McCallum at my worst. I was at the ring for a year. And I fought Mike McCallum. Mike McCallum struggled to beat me. Took Mike McCallum 11 rounds. He struggled to beat me at my worst. I trained my heart out against Nigel Benn. And what a fight with Nigel was. No comparison.
Any more?
I also wanted to ask how do you think Harold Graham would have got on with the Benns in the Eubanks?
Harold Graham, very technical fighter against Nigel. When he hit Harold Graham with some body shots, killed his engine. That's what would have happened.
Okay, well, before we let you go, the one question that I have really is about your relationship with Chris. I know that you and Chris have met at intermittent times throughout the years. Yeah. Just your relationship with Chris. Of course, you were involved in two brilliant fights. Obviously, the second fight was a tragic ending. But what's your relationship with Chris now?
No animosity. Chris is a very good technical fighter. A man of very solid chin. Quality. I said, I'm a person of love. I'm not a hater, I'm a lover of mankind. I said to Chris, I forgive you. There's no fault with Chris. The people that organised the system, the rope shouldn't have been slacked. There's certain faults in the procedure that was out of context. But I forgave Chris what's happened, and that still stands. Not animosity.
Was that immediate? Was that straight off the bat, or was that something you had to work
straight
on?
off? I do like Chris as a person. He could be extraordinary at times. Yeah, but he's a nice man. He's a nice man. I have no problem with Chris.
You mentioned the procedural changes that were made after the fight on the back of the injury that you suffered. Countless fighters over the years.
Yes.
I mean, off the top of my head, like Spencer Oliver being one of them, Gerald McClellan,
Yes.
may not have been around if it wasn't for what happened to you. So admittedly in terrible circumstances for you, but a real legacy has been left because of what happened to you.
I've set a legacy, Rob, to make boxing safer for fighters in general. You know, that's the system that can never be forgotten. I've set a legacy of safety aspects in boxing.
Any regrets?
Not in the slightest. I'm still the people's champion. The whole universe, I mean, it's showed me, my name's gone around, I've met the Queen, and I've been awarded by the MBE. And getting a mention by the Queen said to me, I'm a remarkable man. I've met some superstars. Muhammad Ali, the Queen, and being the people's champion, my name's gone all over the universe. Even China, the whole world knows me. I'm blessed to be who I am. I thank God above for saving my life, making me who I am. I'm more of a godly man since this incident. I'm a changed person for the better. I thank God for saving my life and giving me the second lease of life. God is a good God. He brought back the force for the people in general.
Not bad for a kid from Islington.
Thank God.
Well, thank you, Michael. Thank you very much for yesterday and as well for coming down today. It's been a real pleasure and a privilege to speak to you. Look forward to catching up with you soon, by which time I'd have lost some weight, because now I don't have any excuse after seeing you running around the track yesterday.
I'll tell you what, Rob, just keep on keeping me on tunnel vision. I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you very much, Rob, for accepting me. And it's good seeing you also, Dave. I wish you all the best in life.
Thank you very much.
Give your best shot. I look forward to seeing the champion in you soon. That's yet to come. Positivity. Positive mental attitude to the PMA standard. Be real. No negativity, but positivity.
The Force, Michael Watson, thank you very much again for popping by. We hope you enjoyed that as much as we did. Very humbling experience and something that I hope that we can do again sometime soon.
I look forward.
Thank you very much, Michael. Welcome back. A really, really wonderful time spent with Michael Watson yesterday and today. A little bit lost for words, really. I think he kind of has that effect on a lot of people. Some man, Dave.
Yeah, you know, I know when I'm around someone a little bit different, you know, someone I've got a real respect for, because I go in myself, I go a bit shy. When he was talking earlier, when you and him was conducting the interview with him, I didn't want to speak, I just wanted to listen to him. As a fighter, as we both know, great fighter. To beat Nigel Benn, you got to be a special fighter. The fight was Eubank. To go 10 rounds with McCallum, great fighter. But to see him today, the last 30 years of his life must have been very difficult. In parts, must have been stuff I couldn't even comprehend what he's been through. And to see him come here today and be so positive and just carry himself the way he does is humbling, really, you know. And as a bloke that I am, that, you know, I have the weight of the world on my shoulders a lot, and I worry about a lot, and I feel sorry for myself quite a lot as well. And when you see that bloke, you just think, you know, there's no excuses not to try your best, and there's no excuses not to not to try and be positive, at least try and be positive. It's just unbelievable, really humbling.
That's kind of I kind of knew that's how you would take him, and I'm guilty of it. I think everybody at some point is guilty of the fact that we all kind of put up our own obstacles, or we build things up in our head that are so much worse or more difficult or impossible to overcome. And then you see somebody like Michael and everything that he's been through. I mean, from his own words and from what he told us earlier today, I mean, he was wheelchair bound for 5 years. He was told that he was lucky to be alive. If he survived the many operations that he had, then he would be wheelchair bound forever. He wouldn't be able to talk, to communicate. And you see him today and see the stuff that we did with him yesterday, going around the track and shadow boxing and hitting the bag. And it's not just kind of those things that stand out. It's the in-between stuff. I mean, Michael Watson came in here and we were all so excited to meet him. But at the end of the day, it's him who makes us feel special. Yeah. And he's just a wonderful man. And considering everything that he's been through, it really does, as you say, it humbles you. And we've all had our moments where it's, I mean, for me, it's always like my weight or something like that. And you kind of think, oh, well, I'm too busy to do this or I'm too busy to do that. I said to Michael yesterday about it and he said, no excuses. And you kind of look at me and you go, yeah, I don't have any excuses. And it was a wonderful, wonderful experience meeting him yesterday and as well as today. And yeah, it's almost surreal.
Yeah, it was great. He was just full of life, Just sharp. It was sharp as a tack, wasn't he? Sharp as anything. Taking the best out of me, and it was great. And yeah, I think for me, I think for you as well. I really took something from him today. Just if he can carry himself how he's carrying himself, with what he's been through, a lot worse than me. There's no excuses for us, is there?
No, absolutely not. And one thing I did want to touch upon with you, obviously. We saw your fight with David Price. We saw how that ended for you, which was a very scary moment. I mean, as your friend, watching that was very, very difficult for me. Worrying about you afterwards was very, very difficult. But of course, what you experienced at that point and kind of not knowing whether you were okay, waking up in an ambulance and being carted off to hospital and hearing Michael's own experiences, that must have been, well, I don't know how that would have been for you. How was it?
It was a weird one because when he was talking to me, he said, "Well, I woke up in the hospital, in the ambulance." Sorry, I remember after the Price fight. The last thing I remember clearly is being in the fight around, I couldn't tell you, around 6 or 7. That's the last thing I really remember properly. I've watched fights back in parts, and I've watched rounds up to round 7, I think, and I'm just lethargically rolling about, and I can't really remember too much. And the first thing I really remember is in the ambulance. I'm just in the ambulance. Some bloke saying, "How are you? Where are you?" And I just remember thinking, "What on earth am I doing in here?" The next thing I heard was my sister in the front of the ambulance. I think she was on the phone to my mum, I think. And I just said to the bloke, I said, "What are we doing?" He said, "What you been doing tonight?" And I said, I've been boxing. I said, "What am I doing?" I said, and he went, "You're in the ambulance, on the way to the hospital now." And I burst out crying. I said, I've been knocked out, haven't I? And he said, No, you haven't. I said, "Well, what am I doing in here?" And he went, "No, calm down." I was really upset. I thought I'd been knocked. I thought it's pride, isn't it? I've lost fights before. Ortiz, Whyte-Povetkin, went out on my shield. I was socked on my feet. Gutted, but so I'm in the ambulance, laid down, strapped up, and I'm crying. I said, "I've been knocked out," and I said, "Daniel," I was just in the front. I said, "Daniel, what's going off here?" And can you feel this? I'm pinching your legs. He's pinching my legs at this point. I've never really talked about this extent. Anyway, he's pinching my legs. I said, "I can't feel a thing, mate." I said, "What's going off?" Pinching my legs, bottom of my legs, top of my legs. I said, "Can you feel anything?" I said, "Mate, I can't feel anything." I said, "What's going off?" I said, "Don't worry about it." And the next thing I remember, I'm out of the ambulance, I'm being rushed through to the thing, and a young nurse comes out, and I said, "What's going on?" Genuinely didn't have a clue. Thinking back now, like, I'm laughing, most maddest night of my life. I said, "What's going off?" She said, "We're going to have a brain scan." I said, "All right." So I have the brain scan. And I started to get a bit of feeling back, my arms and legs, I think I'm all right. I said to her, "What's going off here?" So I had the brain scan. I said, "Am I going to box again?" She went, don't you worry about that. So straight away, at this point, I still don't know if I've been knocked out. So my family's not allowed to come in the room. Darren and that had all turned up. I didn't know that at the time. I said, what's going off? I said to the woman, what's going off? And she went, I genuinely don't know. I haven't got a clue. I've been at work all night. She's not been watching boxing. We have the brain scan. She went, right, we're going to stitch all your eyes up. One eye was completely closed, couldn't see out of it. I said, all right. So anyway, finally, after about an hour, the whole family come back in. Darren came in. Darren's crying. I said, Darren, what's gone off? So he told me, he's been stopped me. I said, I've been knocked out. He said, no, you pulled out in the corner. Even worse than being knocked out, I've been pulled out in the corner. And I've watched it backward. I said, Darren, I can't see. So I'm at this point, I'm heartbroken, to be honest. And when I was hearing Michael earlier saying when I was in the hospital, in the ambulance and all this, it upset me a bit. It's like, on the first point, it's like, I don't ever want to do that ever again. Because I can remember my sister in the ambulance hearing her talking. I remember my sister coming in. I remember Darren coming in. I remember Danny coming in. Monty, the girl I was with at the time, mum coming in. All crying. I'm in the hospital bed. Can't see out of one eye. I had about 20 stitches altogether on my eyelids and my eyes. And I just thought, and that's why for 6 months I didn't know I was going to box again. And hearing Michael talk about it earlier, and knowing Michael weren't as lucky as me, I got out of that bed that same night and I said, I'm not staying here. And I left. I said, I'm going. I said, I'm not staying here. I said, I'm fine. I weren't fine, but I wanted to leave. Mainly because I was embarrassed as well. And hearing Michael talk about it, don't feel very nice. Because I'm not even retired, you know. And the fact that it could happen again is terrifying.
It brings it all home to you.
Yeah, when I heard him earlier, my body was I just felt like, phew, I was lucky. There's not many people collapse after fights, go to the hospital, and they're the same again. And I've fought again. I'm planning on fighting again. I've been very fortunate. It brings it home and it does worry me, but it's my living. But at the same time, I'm listening to Michael and I'm looking at him and I'm just thinking, you poor man, you know. I was blessed, but seeing how he's come back from it, I can look at him and just in awe of him, really, for not only how he's recovered, but how mentally just taking it in his stride and just gets on with it. But yeah, it was when he was talking about it earlier, it was fucking sorry for that. I swore there.
That's okay. We're fine.
Yeah, and thinking about it, like I never try to think about it because it is scary. You know, it is. Because I remember in that when I woke up in the hospital, telling me I can't feel my legs. It was I've never been scared in my life, and I've been in some scary situations in my life, but none as scary as the fact that none as scary as I can't feel my legs. You know, from boxing. I was paralysed for the medical report was like an hour. In the end, it was concussions on my spine, which caused my body to shut down during the fight, which then caused eventually my arms and legs to be paralysed. But at the time, when you wake up and you can't feel your legs and your arms, and you know really sure what's going off, it was horrifying, to be honest. So it's scary, yeah. But yeah.
Now, one of the things that we spoke about out there was the fact that you boxed Luis Ortiz on 9 days' notice. You had 5 fights in 7 months, and you didn't train a day for any of them. Now, I've repeatedly drummed into you off camera about the fact that you can't do that. You can't sustain that. If you want to do something like that, go and pick a different sport, go pick a different job, X, Y, and Z. Now, seeing Michael today, I understand the tendency to kind of look at him and go, oh, you poor man. And then you're around him for 10 seconds and you realise that Michael wouldn't change anything. From his own admission earlier, he wouldn't change anything. But seeing him and seeing the lasting damage that has been done on him, you have to surely now. You've got a team around you now, MTK Global, the biggest management company in boxing. Surely now that has inspired you. And he's already said to you that if you don't take your training seriously, then he's going to come for you and he's going to unleash the force. And nobody wants that. That surely must motivate you to really take things seriously.
Yeah, and you know, looking back, when I boxed Donny in Darts, I wasn't sure who I was going to box 6 weeks before. I got put on the show 6 weeks before. I got sent some Italians' names, whatever else. Eventually, we watched Donny in Darts. She was English, Welsh, and it was just an easy fight to make. It's alright, sound. I never trained a day for that fight either. 7 months after I was in the ambulance in the hospital, you know, for a very short space of time, I'm going to walk again. Then for a space of time after, even after, you're still thinking, am I going to be the same again? And my eyes going to be the same again? You know, what's going to happen in 30 years' time is often something I think about. I never really looked past it, but I'm nearly 29 now, I want to have kids. In 30 years' time, I'd quite like to know my kids and be able to speak to them coherently. So yeah, I didn't even take it serious when I boxed at Sheffield. I never trained a day again. And one day I had to bring a book out because the book would be hilarious as long as I'm healthy in 30 years' time to tell the story. Rob's going to write it. But 2018, I boxed Leroy Thomas with the cut eye. We'll tell this story because it's a funny story. So the cut eye, couldn't see for a week out the eye. So anyway, I go home. I said, look, Eddie, are you making this Leroy Thomas rematch on May on the Bellew Hay rematch? Yes, we are. Right, Sam. I'll have a week off. Ring him again. Are you making it? I'm not sure. We'll see what happens. Anyway, Joyce Thomas gets announced. So I get fat. I boxed Dave out Walsall Town Hall, weighing in at 19 stone 6. Put 2.5 stone on in 8 weeks somehow. It's easy done when you know what you're doing. Anyway, so I boxed Dave out 19 stone 6. I then have a couple of weeks off after that. And then on 2.5 weeks' notice, I boxed Tony Yoka. I sparred twice and did 2 training sessions. So I trained 4 times for Tony Yoka. I then have a concussion against Yoka. The night after I watched Tony Yoka, I was sick as a pig in the hotel room. I went out with Mick and John Murray after for an hour. Didn't speak, and my mate Tom was there. Didn't speak a word. I'm ready for spewing, but I didn't want to show it. I didn't want to ruin their night out. Anyway, so I go back in the hotel room. I was just spewing all night in the thing. The next day I travelled home. Again, the same eye. I couldn't check out the same eye again. This is twice in 3 months. The eye swollen shut, cut over the top, cut on the eyelid. So anyway, I go home. Spewing for 2 weeks. I couldn't really see for 2 weeks. Couldn't really see straight. I couldn't see this eye at all. Couldn't really see much at all. Couldn't hear very well. The worst headaches ever. Anyway, so I didn't train again. I felt alright, but I have another week and a half off. Then the phone rings. Nick Webb, 10 days notice. Well, 6 days notice eventually. Do you want it? Yeah, go on then. I said to Mick, I'm not coming to Leeds. Come to me, Bird at the time, back garden. We'll do a pad session. That's all we did. Then went and boxed Nick Webb. Knocked him out. Had a bit of money. Then to me and Nebo. I trained at Mick's for like a week when we did the chest thing. So I've done like 6 training sessions for Nebo. Boxed him. Beat him in the first round because he weren't very good. And then he said, do you want to box on the Manchester show? Yeah. Then he says, you're off. So don't train again. Then he says, you're back on. You're boxing Bracamonte. I'll beat him. No, you won't, Eddie. Bracamonte, the battered you. Anyway, so I did 1 week at Mix again. Did 3 training sessions there. One of them were a weight session. Then boxed Bracamonte. Perforated both eardrums. Cut my eye again 3 times, my right eye. And then, and that was a turning point. I turned things around for Brown. And then again, I didn't learn again before Price. Because I was so overtrained with 6 weeks left. I said to Darren, I ain't coming back to London. You'll never see me in London again training. I ain't coming back, Darren. Come and train me, because I ain't coming down here. You come to me. You're getting 10% of my money. It's a lot of money. I know you're busy, but I ain't coming back down. So Darren came up once to Doncaster in 6 weeks. The money was too much. I had to take the price fight. I know that. And again, it's not fair on the boxing fans that pay because they didn't get the best me. I trained probably 3 times in 6 weeks. Then I didn't train for the darts fight. But now, like I said, Jamie MTK, and I missed half the stories out because some of the stories after the web fight, as you was there.
That we'll save those for the book. Carry on.
Had some mad times. And like Michael said, if it all went wrong, you can't regret anything. Whatever happens, happens. I never have any regrets. But boxing gave me a life I could never have dreamed of. So at the same, I would feel unfair if I said, "Oh God, I wish I had done this." You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand that, but there also has to be an element of, as you say, you're coming up 30 now, or you're coming up 29, and there has to be an element of growth as a person, and you have to, as you get older, you have to understand things and put things into perspective a little bit more. Whereas I've known you in your early to mid 20s, and you weren't capable of doing that. Whereas now you are capable of doing that.
The problem is, I look at it now, I'm nearly 30. I've got like, how many losses am I away from not being able to earn good money anymore? Probably 1, maybe 2, if the next one's a hard fight where you got another chance. I must have, the money I've spent on helping people locally, with training, with boxing, with Danny, with other things, is unbelievable. Nearly 6 figures I've ploughed into people and things I'm doing with no comeback. I have to box financially. I'm at a point now again where I have to box. I have to. And then I want to have kids. I want to do this. I want to be healthy. I want to be financially secure. That's why I'm training hard. I don't really want to, but I have to. But it's become again. I'm back at a point now where I need to do it, and that's why I'm in shape. You know, numerous different reasons. People always say to me all the time, "You change your mind all the time. What's up with you, bipolar or something?" And I always go, "Don't say that. That's not very nice. Could be true." So, back onto Michael Watson. Yeah, it did it home. To be honest, massively. It really was like a knife in the chest. To be honest, I thought, wow, I was lucky. And I still took the piss when I boxed in Sheffield. I still didn't train for that. Moving forward with Jamie, he won't allow me in the ring if I'm not fit. He won't. So that, as well as me needing to do it for other reasons, and the main reason, I just want to prove everyone that I'm good, because I am, but I've never shown it. And if in 20 years' time, if my career ends tomorrow, in 20 years' time, I'd be heartbroken. Like the same way my old man is. I know my old man is, and I don't want to be the same.
Yeah, I think it's probably fair to point out that you can't really be in Michael's presence for any extended period of time without really looking at yourself. And I kind of knew that this would bring this side of you out after meeting him. And hopefully it gives you a much needed, you're in good shape, you're looking very svelte, you're actually wearing one of my jumpers, which, to be fair, I'm not sure whether that makes you in shape or not, but you are a heavyweight. But there we go. Back to Michael. I know that you were very, very interested to ask him about certain fights. The Nigel Benn fight, which is what I watched a few nights ago now. Some fight, 22-0, 22 knockouts against Michael Watson. Michael spoke to him yesterday about his first loss to James Cook. It was a very, very underrated middleweight from years gone by. Works a lot of corners now. See a lot of James Cook on the circuit. But that fight against Nigel Benn was an absolute war, and it's almost incredible to think that this kind of gentle, humble, happy man that he is now stood toe to toe, and he didn't run away. He tucked up and he stood his ground against arguably the most murderous puncher that this country has ever produced.
Like you were saying before, the reason why, like, you got Eubank, the character that he was, Nigel Benn, the character that he was, even though they was vastly different, Michael was quieter. He was as good as both. They had 3 fights with both men.
He beat Ben. He got robbed in the first Eubank fight, and he was winning the second Eubank fight.
So that's the calibre of fight we're talking about. He boxed Mike McCallum. Nigel Benn, unbelievable fighter, but Mike McCallum's one of the best fighters to ever do it.
Yeah.
And as big boxing fans, I know you are as well, for me to sit across from this man who's beaten Nigel Benn, been in there over Mike McCallum, held his own for 10 rounds, he wasn't out of place, boxed Chris Eubank, I'm in awe of him, you know. Put to one side what happened to him, just as a fighter, I'm just in awe of him, and I'm not on top of it, and that's what he said. He's a living legend, and he really is. He really is. But he beat Nigel Benn. Going back to what you said, experience. The James Cook defeat was why he beat Nigel Benn. And the Michael Watson defeat is why Nigel Benn went on to beat the Iron Barclays of the world and stuff. And yeah, you know, there's not many fights like them about anymore. I was on about Harold Graham, James Cook again was on about that era of middleweights from the mid to late 80s, early 90s. Unbelievable time for British boxing, wasn't it?
All over the place as well. Obviously, you had the guys stateside, James Toney, Roy Jones Jr.
Callum Bay. I'm a big Callum Bay.
Callum Bay was a brilliant fighter, really underrated fighter, the first man to beat Mike McCallum.
Most people don't even know Callum Bay.
Michael Nunn, another brilliant fighter around that time, middleweight, super middleweight. Really great time for boxing. Final word before we let you go. It wouldn't be right to not mention the best body shot of the last 20 years. Dave Alen, KO 3 over Lucas Brown. Michael Watson's own words, by the way.
He did say this.
He did say it was the best body shot of the last 20 years. Shows you what a nice man Michael Watson is, saying something like that. But I'd imagine, I watched you, obviously stood away and watched you talking to a legend like Michael Watson, and you're talking him through, the greatest moment of your life, arguably. And what was that like for you? Certainly up there.
I love talking to great boxers. When I see Carl Frampton in the gym, Martin Murray in the gym, again you get shy. When you got someone like Michael Watson watching my videos, that's a great punch, well done. Fills me with unbelievable joy. So as every boxer, like Michael Watson, the way Michael Watson was talking about Muhammad Ali as a fan, we're all fans somewhere. Hopefully in 5-10 years' time, I'll have been British heavyweight champion. There'll be young kids saying, "Oh my God, David Allen said this about me." That's what you dream of being. When you start out boxing, you never dream of making a lot of money. You just dream about winning things and being good. So when he watched it, it took a bit of probing to get the best boxer of the last 20 years out. But we got it out of him in the end. That's all you ever want is every boxer I speak to, all my mates that boxer I speak to, all they ever really want is other people in the industry to say, you know what, you're a good fighter. Money's great. Money comes and goes. Most things come and go. That come with boxing. Money, women, whatever, they come and go. But Michael Watson telling me, that's a good body shot. I didn't have to probe that out of him. No, I didn't. So it felt good. So yeah, I remember seeing him, just probably one of the best things happened in 2020. Just really enjoyed his company. He's infectious, isn't he? He's just bubbly. He's a great character. Yeah, he made me think as well today. Some of the things he said. Thank you very much, Rob, for having me down. I enjoyed it very much.
You are always welcome, and you got to get your hands on a WBC world title as well.
First of many. We're going to win it at heavyweight, super cruiserweight, maybe light heavy.
Well, that's what he said to you. He was like, "You heavyweight, you look like a light heavyweight." Let's not go there, because I'm pretty sure that you couldn't make light heavyweight. But you are, of course, welcome. As are you, for tuning in. Thank you very much to everybody for tuning in to the new and improved version of the Boxing Social podcast with me, your host, Rob Tebbett, and my co-host, the lovely, the incomparable, the White Rhino, Dave Alen. Thanks very much for stopping by. Keep an eye out for all of our new little bits and pieces of content coming up, as well as our Boxing Social podcast, which will be back in a couple of weeks. But thank you very much from me, Rob Tebbett, and everybody at Boxing Social in association with Betfred. And we will catch up with you soon. Thanks very much.